And we are back. What is up, everybody? In the last video, we built this categories row, and it is paging view aligned, which looks really nice with this UI here. I like when you swipe, it lands right here. That's a UI that we're starting to see more and more in apps. The App Store app has a lot of that. And now that it's built into SwiftUI, I mean, there's no reason for us not to be building our scroll views with these paging behaviors. I think it's looking really great. But we have one more section on the Explore screen to build, and it's this section down here, the popular section. Let's get started by building this row, which should be relatively easy. Let's open up the navigator, jump into our reusable components section, and create a new file from template. You already know that this is going to be a SwiftUI view, and let's call this one the CustomListCell view. All right, I will challenge you guys again to go and build this cell. It is simply an H stack and then a V stack. There's an image, there's a title, and there's a subtitle. Go ahead and build it. Otherwise, I'm going to do it quick. Let's do image name of type string equals constants.random image. Title of type string. We'll make it optional in case we don't want to use one. Let's call this alpha, and we'll say subtitle. Also make it optional in case we don't have one, and we'll say an alien that is smiling in the park. And as I type this, I realize that if we use alien, we should use an, where in our UI here, I only have a alien. So let's actually fix that quickly, just to be grammatically correct in English. Let's jump to our avatar model. We have our description here. And let's see, if it is alien, then it starts with an A. So let's say let prefix equals, and we'll say if character option is equal to alien, then N, otherwise A. And then we'll put here the prefix. And let's return this string now because we have two lines. And then lastly, of course, if we go and add a bunch more things here, you could imagine in the future, maybe we add an elephant, right? And since this also starts with a vowel, we're going to want to update this. So inside character option, let's just create a quick var and says starts with a vowel, just to be really explicit, of type bool. Let's switch on self, and we'll just say for case.alien, return true, and then our default will be return false. Starts with vowel should be fine. Let's get rid of elephant, and we'll just say if character option dot starts with vowel and otherwise A. All right, back to our cell. Let's go ahead and build this quickly. We're going to build an H stack here, spacing of 8. Inside here, we'll have an image loader view with a URL string. We'll pass in our image name. Let's make this a square. As we see in the preview here, this is going to be a square. So I'll make this an aspect ratio of 1, and we'll fit inside that square. Let's give it a frame with a height of 60 and a corner radius of 16. In a future version of SwiftUI, Apple will really better undeprecate corner radius. It is such a handy modifier. VStack, option enter to get the initializer. Let's align it to the left, and let's add spacing of 4. At the top, we're going to say if let title, and then we'll say if let subtitle. In the title, we'll add a text that is the title, of course, and then in the subtitle, we'll do the same with the subtitle. The title will have a font of headline, and the subtitle will have a font of subheadline. Looking good, looking good. And then let's push this to the left edge of the device. As we can see, it's kind of in the center right now. If I add a background color dot red, we should see the background. So let's frame max width infinity, and let's align it to the left edge of that infinity frame. Sweet. Get rid of this. So let's put our custom cell inside a Z stack quick, and we'll make the background of the preview color.gray. Ignore safe area. And then I'm going to give this cell the same color background as the list cell is going to give it. So just to match the list cell in case we decide to use this on a screen that is not the list row. So let's give this a background, and we're going to pull the UI color. So let's go color, UI color. Let's go system background. So that should match the background white here. That is going to come by default. Before that background, let's give this a little bit of padding, maybe 12. And let's actually go maybe vertical, an extra 4 vertical. So that looks pretty good. Great. Let's go ahead and use this in our Explore view. Let's jump back to the Explore view now. Let's add another section. So I'm going to copy this section and we'll just put another one here. This section is going to say popular. We could do popular avatars maybe, or let's see, we did featured avatars up here. Let's actually just make that featured. So we have featured, categories, and popular. And in the popular section here, let's get some data to put in there. Again, we're going to put avatars in this section. So let's copy this and just paste it down here. This will be our popular avatars. And our popular avatars will also have the same fake mock array for now. Let's loop on the popular avatars. So here, instead of this carousel view, what we're going to actually do now, because we're in a list, each item here, let's just say text hi, each item is actually going to be its own cell. So we're already in a list, and each item can have a cell. If we don't remove the padding, we'll be able to see that. So if I go hi, 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 we should see each cell. So we should be able to just put these new cells directly in here. Let's do a for each. Let's loop on the popular avatars, which are hashable, id \self. Let's put in here our, what is it, a list row cell, a custom list cell view, option enter for the full completion, triple click Control M. Let's pull here the avatar.profile image name, avatar.name, avatar.character description. Let's get rid of these highs. And I forgot to make this optional. So let's jump back into the custom list cell view and make the image name optional. And here, what I'm just going to do is a Z stack, and we'll say if let image name else. So if we have the image name, we'll put this here, and we'll highlight this, Control I to fix the formatting. And if there is no image name, let's just put a rectangle, or let's just put a rectangle, and we'll fill with, let's do .secondary.opacity 0.5. So it's a little gray rectangle. On the preview, I'm just going to put 2 of these, and for the image name for this one, I'll put nil. Sorry, let's put these in a V stack, and I'll paste 4 of them. This one for the title, I will put nil, and this one for the subtitle, I'll put nil. All the different variations of our cell here, looking good. Let's jump back to the Explorer view. We're almost done with this. And I see that there's extra padding added back in here. That's again because the list row has that extra padding. So I think maybe we actually should remove the list. Let's call remove list row formatting. And that looks better. Great. That looks exactly like what we are going for. We're going to wrap up this view with just a little bit of polish. Not that we have to, but I want to. So if we look here and I click on one of these are all obviously buttons. We have this really cool animation. I think when we click it and we are holding it down and pressed on it, it kind of highlights over the cell. I think that highlight is a nice custom button that we're going to build now. And it's actually pretty easy in SwiftUI. Let's go ahead. This will be another view modifier. And this one's going to require a little bit more logic, so we can't just put it in our view extension file. In our components, let's create a new folder and call this view modifiers. So custom view modifier will be in here. And then since these views, even though it is an extension of view, these are all technically view modifiers. So let's just move this into our view modifiers folder for now. In our view modifiers, let's right click, create a new file from template. And I'm going to make this, we'll make it a SwiftUI view, even though it is not really going to be one. Let's call this button view modifiers and click create. And I'll explain why in a second. But before we actually go ahead and do that, let's just put on the screen here a text that says hello world. In SwiftUI, you can make custom button styles. So normally if you have a button, Let's do a button here with an action and a label. So the action, we're not going to do anything yet, but the label, we're going to put the text. So this button has a button style. We'll go ahead and add .a button style, and then we can add a bunch of button styles. So the plain button style is the normal style that we see. Let's make this just our call to action button. All right, and we'll add some padding just so we can see this in the preview. When I click and hold on this, see how it like kind of highlights over that? That is the plain button style. But what I want to do is actually create a custom style that is different from this one right here. So what we're going to do up here is create a custom button style. It'll be a struct, and I will call this custom button style for now, and it will conform to the button style protocol. If you want to learn how to make a bunch of different custom button styles, I will put a link below to a video on my YouTube channel where we dive into button styles. In order to conform to the protocol, we need to add a make body function. And the configuration, this configuration is the configuration of the button. Inside of this button, we need to return some view. So we'll return the configuration.label as is. So when we highlight it, really what it is just a color that's going to appear on top of it as an overlay. So let's go here and let's get this button. Maybe we'll do a V stack here. Put another button down here. So our hello world button, let's give it a frame with a max width of infinity, and we'll give it a tappable background. So when I click on hello world, I can see it just barely fading out right now. But let's actually make this a .overlay. And we will say if the configuration.is pressed, so if the button is pressed, we'll add a overlay with color.accent, otherwise color.clear. Let's use the custom button style here. I'll paste it down here so I can see it. Okay, that's a good start. We'll add a little bit of padding here. Let's add some padding on the button quick. Okay, good start. Maybe we'll do accent.opacity 0.4, 40%. Great. And then I think it's going to animate better. Rather than doing clear, we'll do color.accent with opacity 0. Lastly, let's change the actual animation so that it's smoother. And we will animate, let's do the smooth operator. And we'll animate on configuration.is pressed. And just like that, we should have a nice button style. I think that looks pretty good. Let's create a view extension so that we can use this more easily in our code, because we can write button, label, and button style every time, but that gets kind of cumbersome, and that might be hard for me or other engineers to remember what button style that we want to do. So let's create a quick shortcut to access this button style. Up here, I'm going to create an extension of a view. Let's call this highlight button. This will be a function that returns some view. And what we're going to do is take our view as is and wrap it inside a button. So we'll add a button here, an action and a label. Now, we don't know what the action is going to be, so let's pass that back. We'll call this action. We'll write at escaping. It'll be a function that returns void. And we'll call action in our button. And then the label is going to be the view that we are putting this on. So we'll just put self. Lastly, we'll put the button style here as this. So now instead of writing this code every time, I could just have my item here, my text, and I'll add highlight button. And that should work out of the box. Cool. While we're here, let's add another button modifier, just since we're working with these button modifiers. So firstly, let's change this to, let's call this highlight button style. Makes it a little bit more appropriate. And I'm going to copy and paste. And I'm also going to make pressable button style. Pressable button style will have slightly different animation. For this, we're going to instead do a .scale effect on the button. If the configuration.is pressed, let's scale it down maybe 0.95% of the original size. Otherwise, we'll keep it at 1. And And I think we can keep the animation on it, although I don't know if we need the animation. Let's see. Let's try the button pressable style. So down here, I'm going to make another view extension here and call this the pressable button style. And let's try it on the call to action button. So here, let's go ahead and do this, and we'll just do .pressable button and see what that looks like. That looks pretty good. If I remove the animation, does that look better or worse? Let's see. It's a little more aggressive. I think we'll keep the animation. I think that looks fine. Awesome. Now, this works as two separate modifiers, but oftentimes I'm just going to make a button, and then I want to determine which kind of button that I want to make it. You can imagine that if we build a bigger project and we built a bunch of these view modifiers for a bunch of different button styles, it's going to get cumbersome to have to remember all the different names for all the different buttons. And if a new junior engineer comes on the project, they might not even know that a bunch of these exist. So let's come in here and let's make an enum, and let's call this button style option, and let's give this pressable as well as highlight. Or actually, let's just call it press and highlight. Maybe we can't put it in the view extension. We'll put it out here. I'm going to copy this and paste it here. I'm going to make a modifier called any button, and I'm going to pass in an option of type button style option. And then we will switch on the option. And if it is the press option as a pressable button, and we'll pass in our action. Otherwise, if it's a highlight, we'll self.highlight button with our action. We're getting a compiler error here that branches have mismatching types. So when we create this function, we declare that it's going to return some view, so some singular view type. But here, this view type and this view type are now different. So to get around this, we can actually mark this function as a view builder, saying that we are going to build the view and it might be different depending on the logic inside. If you want to learn about View Builder, I will also link that below. I have a whole video on my YouTube channel about how the View Builder works. This is great. So now let's come down here, and because we're going to use any button in our app, we actually don't need to use this anywhere other than inside this file right here. So let's make this private. Let's make this private. And let's change our buttons to be a .any button. Let's do .highlight. And any button .press. Make sure it's working. Great. Let's condense the code a little bit. The word option here is a little redundant. We don't really need it. So let's just put in our function an external name of underscore so that we don't actually have to render it. So down here, we can get rid of the word option. And then while we're here, let's also add a version, let's just call this plain. And this will be our case.plain, in which we will return the plain button style, which is our default. So we'll do plain button style, self.plain action. Let's come down here and we will do one more. Let's copy this, paste it, and we'll call plain. So this is our default again, it's working. And then last but not least, if we don't give it an option, we'll give it a default value of plain. So that is the default in SwiftUI anyway. So I can actually I can leave this blank and it should work. Sweet. It is 2 a.m. and I am falling asleep. So I think this is going to be the last video for the night. I'm losing my voice. Let's jump into the Explore view. And on these cells, I'm going to give each category, not category cell, each popular cell, we're going to give this a .any button, and let's go ahead and make these highlight. And let's put the list row formatting after. Beautiful. While we're here, let's move this down. I will cut this. Let's go private var popular section of type some view. Let's put the popular section on the screen. In the featured section, let's go ahead and make sure all of our hero cells are tappable. Let's do an as any button. Maybe we make these ones as press. Let's see how that looks. I like it. I don't love it. Maybe we'll use the plain. Yeah, plain looks better for that. I'm going to also make the category cells plain. And then while we're working with these buttons, I'm noticing that when I click on this cell down here, it works. But if I click on the top half of the cell, it doesn't always work. And I'm trying to figure out why. If we think back to when we made the image loader view, we added some custom logic to put a rectangle on the background, and then we put the image on top of it. And then we made the image not clickable, but the rectangle is supposed to be clickable. I'm not sure if you guys remember that, but it was in the image loader view. And then what we did was we made the rectangle opacity 0, which actually does not render the rectangle, which kind of defeated the whole purpose. So I think the bug that we had is that this is not supposed to be 0. So if I come here and I add a .any button, let's make this .highlight. I should be able to tap this, but I can't. So if we just make the opacity 0.001, I think then it becomes tappable. Cool, fixed that bug. Jump back, make sure it works. Let's tap the top of the cells real quick. Great. And let's put this back to the plane. Actually, since we are using the plane, I'm just going to get rid of this, make it even less code. The plane is the default. And the last thing we're going to do before we wrap up this video is all the buttons that we made in the onboarding view, let's convert them to our new modifier. So I'm just going to Option Shift F and look for button in my code. It's not my button view modifiers, not here, but let's see. We made in the onboarding, looks like we have a button here. This button, let's go ahead and let's cut this, paste it here, and let's make this any button. And maybe we make the pressable button for these, and the action will be on finished pressed. See if that works. That looks nice. Let's see, what else do we have? Is this a button? That's a navigation link. Here's a button. Profile screen, we're going to fix that one later. Settings view, we're going to fix that later. And here we have the CTA buttons, but it's a navigation link, and we're just going to leave that as is as well. Awesome. All right, jump back to the Explorer view quickly, and I think we are just about done. All right, and I think that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and commit this, Option Command C. Let's make this a feature, and we will say custom list cell view, stage commit, and let's go ahead and push that up to GitHub. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.